Welcome to Empire Talk. I'm your host, HykeemRashaad, and today we have Al Reynolds. How are you, Al Reynolds?
I'm good. How's it going, Hakeem?
Everything's going well for me. I cannot complain. Thank you for coming on today.
Absolutely. Look at that sweater you got on. Where you get that? Is
I
that a
got
Santa Claus?
No, this is a swan.
A
Like,
swan?
yeah, it's the ugly Christmas sweater.
Okay. I see it. Now I can see it. So that's a swan with a Santa Claus hat on.
Yes.
All right. You're making me feel all bad. I don't have on anything Christmassy. I need to decorate, right?
I'm trying to bring the Christmas spirit in.
All right. Very nice.
Okay, so how has the pandemic been for you from the beginning until now? Like, what's some of the things that you can tell me that you experienced?
Oh, So it's very interesting. I moved to a new city during the pandemic. So I moved to Washington, D.C. for a job assignment during the pandemic, which has been very, very awkward, to be honest, because you're moving to a new city. I don't know anybody in the new city. And then on top of that, the city's on lockdown. So it's been a very challenging experience to be here. I got to be honest with you. At first, it was scary because we didn't know what the pandemic was, right? We didn't know the effects of it. All I knew was that people were dying.
Yes.
And people were getting sick. And then as things started to unfold, what we started to learn was that if you had a pre-existing condition, especially in the African-American community, where we had a large percentage of diabetes or high blood pressure, hypertension, or obesity, or congestive heart failure, whatever it was, we saw that those individuals were affected 10 times more than anyone else. So then it went from scary to then being, what we describe it as a pandemic, which was really bad.
Yes.
But let me tell you something that was so interesting, Hakeem. I was so blessed to, after a year of being in the pandemic, to get that job at Fox Soul. And so, like many people working from home, confused about, the state of everything. We were in a confusion state about the Black Lives Matter movement was going on. We were in a confusion state about the election with the president and his crazy antics. We were in a confusion state about people in our communities dying and getting sick. I was able to join a cast of individuals who we actually brought laughter to people's lives. And in the process of bringing laughter to people's lives, I actually brought laughter to my own, which was something that I really needed. And if you ever watch TGIF, the show, I laugh more than you guys. It's actually like Funky Dineva keeps me in stitches. So it ended up being like very therapeutic, actually. So I was afforded the opportunity to do something fun and bring to the community a whole different lighthearted side of entertainment in a time where most people were just very confused, depressed, and not knowing what was happening and what was going on. So that was kind of like been my pandemic experience.
Right. And when you said depressed, like, I feel the pandemic also showed us a lot about ourselves and it brought a lot of self-awareness is, even when it comes to having, emotions or seasonal depression. And yet we still are in this pandemic and we're still trying to figure out what, how many ways that we can figure out that can help us with our mental health, because that's the conversation that I feel like that is very helpful and that what's inspired me every day to help other people who's dealing with mental health issues, or not just during the pandemic but prior. So this is a time where it's encouraged to speak about, and like you said, you found laughter during this time, and with your show TGF on Fox Soul. So I want to ask you, how did that opportunity come about? Like, how was, like, tell me the moments of with that phone call that you had. Like, I want to know the experience and that feeling you had inside.
So it really happened like this. So I was going to Atlanta to Cynthia Bailey's wedding to Mike Hill. So Mike Hill, of course, at the time of their wedding had his own talk show on Fox Soul. And Claudia Jordan was also invited to the wedding. Funky Dineva was also invited to the wedding. And then I don't know if you watched the show, but Gary with the T was also on our panel, was invited to the wedding. And so the wedding was north of Atlanta, but a large number of us had stayed at what was the name of that hotel? What was the name of the hotel? A lot of us stayed at the W Hotel. And so Gary with the T was driving to the wedding. And so me and Claudia, we caught a ride with Gary with the T to the wedding. And just on the ride up to the wedding, we just laughed and joked and talked about what was going on in pop culture and what was going on, just in general with the pandemic and how everyone was acting crazy. And so we just kind of laughed all the way to the wedding. And then when we got to the wedding, Mike Hill had also invited the president of the network who had given him the job.
Oh, wow.
So he was at the wedding, and then we ran into Funky Dineva. So because the wedding was a little bit chaotic because of the pandemic restrictions, a lot of us ended up at the bar trying to just figure out how to navigate these masks, and we had to put our masks together and all this stuff. So we're just sitting around just cracking up laughing. And so Claudia came up with an idea, and she was like, hey, I want to try something. And she told the president of the network that she wanted to try something. And she wanted to try doing a panel of 4 guys, which was the 4 of us who were standing around joking, doing a show. And so we did it on that Friday after the wedding. The president liked it. He called us that night after we got off the air and was like, hey, that was really good. Can you guys come back next Friday and do it again? So we were like, listen, buddy, you got one for free. You got one for free. But and so then he was like, listen, if you guys come back and if the synergy is still there, then we can talk about doing some type of deal. And that's kind of how it manifested. It really came from a very pure, simple, fun spot. I mean, it was like a group of us hanging around, drinking, pre-gaming before the wedding, because, it's a television production. Everybody's always running late, and we ended up drinking, joking, and having a lot of fun. And that's kind of how it happened. Of course, we lost Gary, but me and Funky and Claudia, we've been rocking ever since.
Well, I want to hear like a backstory. So who was Al Reynolds before you reached the entertainment world? Like, can you tell me some things or share some enlightening things about yourself before you came, or how did you present yourself for what you are here? Like you were speaking about alignment and things, manifesting. So that's a big thing that I believe in as well. So how was that?
Yeah. So, as we talk about mental health and we talk about alignment, and as we talk about putting yourself in a position to not only be healthy mentally, but to be healthy emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I was kind of like that dude that kind of believed in, read the book, The Secret, read the 45 Laws of Power. I was that kind of dude. So growing up, I always wanted to be a banker. From a very young age, my parents empowered me with, back in the day, in the late 70s and early 80s, you had checkbooks. And, and so my parents used to write checks. My mother was a big check writer. My dad was a cash and carry type of guy. So my dad would let me count his cash in his wallet and give out the allowances. And my mother would allow me to balance her checkbook. And that's kind of how I learned the interest in budgeting and money. And that's kind of that coupled with, I don't know if you ever heard this show, the Beverly Hillbillies was a show that was on in the 80s, and it was about this country family that struck oil, and then they moved to Beverly Hills, and they were, super wealthy. So from watching that show, coupled with my desire to be a banker, I just grew up always saying that I wanted to be in investment banking. And I went to school, studied architecture undergrad, but then I went to graduate school, studied finance, and went straight off to New York. And Lord and behold, next thing you know, I was a private banker and I managed extremely wealthy people's money. I worked in the sports and entertainment division on a Wall Street firm called Merrill Lynch. And I've had clients, my clients were like Floyd Mayweather and Little Bow Wow and Pat McGrath. I don't know if you know any of those people. They were big in fashion, like Naomi Campbell, Gisele Bundchen, John McEnroe. These are all kind of my clients at that time. And that was kind of like my introduction before I married into entertainment. So just from working in the business and managing entertainers on the financial side, it put me in a position where I also was able to meet entertainers on the personal side. And that's kind of how I met my ex-wife. And once, of course, I went from being a private banker to marrying her, then the two worlds collided. And, she was a television host on The View. And there we have it. There we have it.
That's good. And so how do you say mental health play in Hollywood? Like, how does it affect you and others, your friends, or, just experiences in general?
So, Hollywood is very interesting. It will play with your mental health. Like, seriously, like being in the entertainment business is exactly what it is. And I think people forget that being in the entertainment business is entertaining. That's what it is. It's a fake life. It's a fake existence. It's all about your appearance and how you are perceived. So your fortitude mentally has to be very strong in order to navigate those waters, because a lot of people become addicted, just like any other drug, to fame. They love the attention. They love being told that they are great, or that they are attractive, or that they look good, or that they did great in a part. And so what happens is, mentally, it's just like any other drug. It alters your true being. It alters the core of who you are. Just like if you drink too much alcohol, it's going to alter your ability to make sound decisions, whether it's driving or, whatever it is it's doing. Just like if you smoke too much ganja, it's going to alter, right? It's going to alter your mental ability to do certain things or to respond to certain things a certain way. So I always tell people that entertainment and fame is kind of like a drug. And what you have to do is just like you do with anything else. You have to limit the effects of it, or you have to manage the effects of it, right?
Yes.
So one way that I manage or used to manage it is I would disconnect, like, a couple of hours of the day, I would, focus on. In the morning for me, it was a lot of prayer. In the evenings, it was a lot of working out. And then also now what I'm learning to do, especially with social media, is I'm learning to disconnect from social media, because that's just a whole nother animal that kind of seeps into your psyche, because you're constantly comparing yourself to everything that's going on in social media.
And then you got the trolls. So speaking about, mental health in Hollywood, what do you think about cancel culture? Since that's a big thing now on social media, what are your thoughts on cancel culture?
So, there is cancel culture is a double-edged sword, in my opinion. Like, sometimes it's necessary, right? Because sometimes some people have just been too abusive of their fame and their fortune and their status. And to actually now have an accountability to some of their ridiculousness, it's kind of great to experience. However, the other side of the cancel culture is that there's very small room for error or margin for error, right? So if you screw up and you say something wrong at the wrong time against the wrong group, you can find yourself ousted. And I think that's the part of the cancel culture that I would like to see recalibrated, if you would, where, just because someone makes a misstep or a mismove, or because we're in an environment of sensitivity around something, like for instance, with the Dave Chappelle situation. So I've been a Dave Chappelle fan for a very long time. And if you notice that about him, nothing in his stand-up has changed. He's been consistent. He's been consistently that way for 20 years. He provides great content. He's funny. He's a comedian. And, you know, there's no sensitivity. No one is off limits to him. And he makes great comedy. However, because we're in this movement of trans lives and understanding of the trans lives and transgender, whatever you say, transgender, transsexual, because we're in the middle of that movement, now the things that he say are extremely offensive and he should be canceled. That's where, you know, I feel like there's a disconnect with cancel culture. Like, he's been rude to everybody. He's an equal opportunity crap talker about everyone. It doesn't have anything to do with him disrespecting the trans community. You know, he disrespects every community. He disrespects Black people. He disrespects white people. He disrespects women, men. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think people forget that too, because when I first ever known Dave Chappelle, I know him from another professor, and he was on there doing the same thing. So, you know, it's no different. I guess it's different climates and what's going on, what's the popular topic, or you know, so in different generations. So, I feel
different generations.
Yes, and it's very unhealthy. It's really unhealthy for, you know, people to do that. Like, oh, you know, somebody says the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, you want to cancel them all out. I think everybody deserves another chance, you know, to work on themselves. Nobody's perfect, and we all human at the end of the day.
That's right.
So
I agree.
And so we're here to empower each other, and that's another thing too I want to talk to you about. What does empowerment mean to you, and like how does it make you feel?
Empowerment can have so many different meanings. When I was your age, empowerment to me used to mean nurture, mentor, what else? Empower, educate, motivate, inspire. Yes. All of those things used to resonate to me when I was your age, when the word empower came up, because I felt like as African Americans and then as African American men, we were disenfranchised. So we needed to have mentors to teach us the way, to show us the way, to kind of fill in those gaps if we didn't get it from home or if we didn't get it from our tribe or our community. Empower to me now has changed because I work in corporate America, and empower to me now isn't about empowering or inspiring. Empower means to me now that we have to be in a position of power. Makes sense? There's a difference in being empowered and then being in power. Does that make sense? So there's there's EM, and then there's IN. So as I get older, what I'm understanding is that people of color that look like you and I, that comes from backgrounds like you and I, we need to be in power. We don't need to be empowered any longer, because we have seen that by empowering us, racism still exists. We still don't have a position. We still don't have a seat at the table, but we're empowered. We've been nurtured. We've been mentored. We've been motivated. We've been inspired, but we're just out here trying to still figure it out. We need to be put in power so that when we are in the boardrooms making decisions that change the world and the economic impact of our communities that look like us, we have a vote in how that is done, and not how they want it done for us, but how we know it should be done, because we are in power too.
I love that. Preach. I love that. Yes, and that's so true, because every time we look on the news, we're seeing, you know, another shooting, and you know, we're seeing how of us as color, we don't get the same type of privileges as everyone else. So you're right, we need to be empowered as well.
Right.
So
And just on media coverage, just on
yes,
media coverage, because we're not in power at the network,
yes,
then we don't get to choose what is being viewed by the millions. That's why when a Black or brown kid goes missing, you don't get coverage. But a little blonde girl go missing and she'll be all over the media. And that's because that news director is not a person of color. And a dark or brown, Black or brown child does not resonate to that person that doesn't look like us, that's as important to save little Black people.
right,
But it does resonate to them when a little white girl goes missing. So to have someone in power that looks like us, they can make those decisions that influence media, that influence policing, that influence legislation, that influence major corporations in what they're investing their monies into in the future, that influence the markets, that influence Wall Street. When we're in a position where we are in power, we become a larger and a louder voice to make change.
right. And that's something that inspires me, and I love that. So, do you have any New Year resolutions, or do you have any that you can like share?
Yes, can I share them with you? Are we
Yeah.
will we make them come true today? Like, what are we doing here? You got a wand over there or something that we can pull
Yes,
out of a hat?
Okay,
Oh,
so
New Year's resolution.
where do you see your sorry.
No, go ahead. You can.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Ooh, I'm very direct now in my intentions. I see myself in the next 5 years probably being on a mainstream media outlet, speaking my truth and my thoughts around world pop culture, world thoughts like economy, finance, money. So I see that. I see myself as a parent in the next 5 years. I am very interested in doing foster care and adopting kids because obviously doesn't look like I'm going to get remarried and make any. So I definitely want to give back and do that. Let's see. And writing my first book, I think it's time for me to pen something about my experience so that people can lean into all the things that I've learned and hopefully help them navigate their lives a little bit better and a little bit easier. So probably in the next 5 years, I would like to be a parent. I see myself doing more television on a larger platform. And then I also see myself penning some type of book. I don't know if it's going to be an autobiography, but it's going to be some type of book in some form of fashion.
That sounds good. I'll be looking forward to that. So is there any project that you're working on now at the moment you can share?
Yes, I am really excited about this one project that I'm working on. I am going to do a podcast. My podcast is going to be a deeper dive to what we cover on my present show, which is going to, I don't know if you get a chance, be sure to watch TGIF on Fox Soul. It comes on every Wednesday and Friday, 5 p.m. West Coast time, 8 p.m. East Coast time. And I'm on the show. I am more of the facts guy. I kind of give you the facts. I give you the research and I give you my opinion so that after I give you the facts and the research behind the topic, then you can make your own informed decision on what you feel about the topic, right? So my podcast is going to do a deeper dive on the top topics that we discussed on the show. And then it's going to kind of evolve into, there's going to be a mental health aspect to it. And then there's going to be a taking the temperature of what people think and feel. So it's going to be a part where I deep dive into the chat and engage individuals that have given me their thoughts on different topics and different ways of seeing things. So I'm really excited about that. What else am I working on? Yeah, that's probably the only one that I can share right now that I'm most excited, because that one's probably going to happen at the top of the year.
Okay. What inspired you?
What inspired me to do it?
Yes.
Or just what inspires me in general?
What inspired you to do your podcast?
So, well, what I found is, for me, a lot of people find my commentary very engaging, and they always have additional questions about, you know, how I feel about stuff, or why did I think that, or what made me come up with that, or, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, wow, you've given me a different perspective. Oh, so that's the backstory. I didn't know what the backstory was. And so I said, that means that lets me know that there's a void there, right?
Yes.
That people are more interested in just headline news. A lot of us just read the headlines and not really understand what's under the headline or what created the headline. Absolutely. And I think there is a special population out there that just wants to be a little bit more informed. And they also want to know, the behind the curtain, like they want to know the truth. And being that I have been on both sides of the camera and both sides of celebrity, I think I have that unique perspective. Like, I was married to one of the largest television personalities in the entertainment game for, 5 years, 6 years. And being a celebrity gives you a whole different perspective when you're reporting on a celebrity, right? So you know how to like cipher through the bullshit. You're like, that ain't how it happened.
Both sides. Yes.
You're like, no, that's not how it happened. So I think a lot of people like that front seat to get to see and hear the perspective from behind the curtain, because there's still a curtain that separates us from the celebrity itself. Even though it's very transparent there these days, there's still a level of, proprietary or private that I kind of share a different perspective on that people like.
Oh, sounds good. Can you give us an estimated time that we can see this podcast?
Oh yeah, so it will be up and available the second week of January. On the 15th, I think, is our present launch date. If everything goes well, we're finishing all of the paperwork and the pre-production and all that stuff right now. So fingers crossed, everything, it will be up and ready by the 15th of January in 2022.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on Foxhole, and I thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and taking time.
Absolutely. All right, buddy. You have a good day.
You too.
At any time.
Yes.
I'll come back.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.